Today, I'm giving a short talk on how to give talks, how to give presentations. That's the purpose of this presentation. I'd like to start with introducing this particular YouTube video that I really like. One of my colleagues forwarded this link to me. It's titled How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint by David Phillips. The main content of that particular presentation talks about putting together nice PowerPoint presentation, to make sure the color combination is really nice. It visually looks clean. You're not putting way too many things in each one of those slides and so on. I really like it. So I'd like to think of that as a prerequisite to this session or this class, however you want to take it. I agree with everything Philip says on that particular talk. I don't want to repeat everything that he has said, so I'd encourage you to go watch that particular video, How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint, and then follow it up with this particular talk. I intentionally titled this talk as How to Frustrate Your Audience. One of the main reason is to have a very catchy title, right? So the purpose of the talk is to tell you how to give clear presentation. But if I just say how to give nice presentation, it already sounds dull, and so people may not look at it. So if you title your talk in an interesting way, it might pique people's interest, and more people may show up and may pay attention, right? So of course, I can explain this as if you don't have opposite of everything that I'm saying, that's how you frustrate audience. So that's clearly answered. Just to make a easy mnemonic to remember, I created this clear agenda. So we are going to talk about CLEAR that you should follow. And in each one of this area, we will elaborate more on how your presentation should have good content. How do you make sure it looks good? How do you bring in a lot of energy? What are the details that you should pay attention to in articulating your thoughts? And then how to provide a good recap, right? So moving on, uh, when I start talking about giving good presentation and talk about even PowerPoint and how to create good slides and so forth, quite often people will come back and say, "Hey, content is what is more important. Who cares about how things look?" Right? I understand. I'm not saying content is not important, and in fact, that's why I put that as the first item. You should have excellent content. If your material is not good, if it's not clear, people are not going to remember your presentation. You won't be conveying your idea very well. Right? So you should start with good content, and even there, I would say you should know your audience. So first, really put some thought into who's the audience. Are they a bunch of engineers that are your colleagues who know this particular project well, and so you are diving down into a specific set of details, or are you talking to some high school children about why some technology is great, right? So you cannot have the same presentation and then present it everywhere and expect people to understand. So you should match the story. Anytime you give a presentation, you are telling a story, right? Remember that. As a result, you should always remember who the audience is, how well prepared they are to receive the information that you are providing, and are you aligning your message, the language, and how you are conveying that information to them effectively so that the story gets very clearly conveyed. Okay. So that's the first thing. You should know your audience. And then usually there are two types of slides that you can put together. One in the tech industry, for example, if I'm asking one of my colleague to go run an experiment in a lab, and you are giving all the information that are needed to run that experiment, you would put down every bit of detail, every command, and when a command is entered, what comes up next, all those details in the slide itself, right? So that's one kind of slide. That's not what you normally use to do any presentation, where you are the main attraction there. You are the one standing there. You are the one telling that story. In that case, the slide should be just a visual aid. If you really look at speakers, even political leaders, they don't use some heavy content slide too much. They are able to articulate their thoughts without even any visual aid, right? Maybe for political speeches, that is okay. But for technical discussions, visual aids are definitely useful. So we should use them. But you should not have that entire content of your speech over there. It should be a very simple, easy to absorb kind of slide. So think of two different kinds of slides. You are not putting slides for lab work. you are putting slides for a presentation, and so do not make all the content go into the slide, making it too cluttery. And beyond that, similar to knowing your audience, you should also know how to present the content that you have in 3 minutes. Normally, this is called an elevator pitch, meaning you are meeting someone in the elevator, and by the time you get out of the elevator, you've already explained what it is. So just a 3-minute pitch or a 30-minute pitch or a 30-minute presentation, which is the norm, where you are describing the details or what the idea behind is. And sometimes you may need to give a 3-hour long presentation where you are really diving down. Maybe you are giving some sort of a training, getting into all kinds of nitty-gritty details, right? And so again, if you know the audience correctly, the audience is an executive, you are meeting him or her in an elevator for 3 minutes, or is it a bunch of trainees whom you are training for 3 hours? You should know on the cadence and how you deliver the story to be consistent with that time frame, right? And here I put cake and icing. This is because I consider the content of the presentation as cake, right? So you should first bake a good cake. And then if you have good icing, that makes the cake delicious, meaning you make the slide look visually nice, you make the presentation nicely, and so forth. But if you don't have a cake, meaning if you don't have a well-made content to begin with, then having nice icing is not going to happen, right? So we agree, understand that content is really important, but content alone presented in a very bad way look like a bunch of cake that you just gave and it's not that interesting, right? Or it's confusing. What is it that you are presenting? So you do need good cake, but nice icing makes the cake much more enjoyable. So having said that, you also should remember how the story should come across. So in Intel, when we were going to some huge conferences, for example, Mobile World Congress, things like that, when we go there, we do go and pitch some, let's say, a new device that we have just come out with, right? So since I have worked on that particular device, I'd be really, really proud of that. I'm like so thrilled that it can do ABC, it has this technology and that feature, it runs that much faster. So I think of us, Intel, the company, or the engineers who worked on it as the heroes who are bringing some phenomenal value to the world. Right? So often we are brought in contact with external trainers who specifically tell you that in these cases, you are not the hero, right? So when you're going to a customer presentation, the customer is the hero. So you should really internalize that well inside so that you tell them that you are the hero, you have a problem that you are trying to solve, and we are helpers. We are coming in to help you solve that particular issue for you, right? So the chips or the software or the help or service, whatever that we are providing, we are all helpers coming in to help you solve that issue. This is not just some fake humility. That's what is really happening. They are the one doing it, and these are tools that we are providing them to solve that. So if you don't think through and internalize this, when you are talking to the customer, you may come across as being arrogant or not really understanding what they are trying to do and just pushing and pitching whatever you think is great, which may or may not be really relevant to them, right? But once you go with that internal mindset, maybe you will pay a lot more attention to their problem and then try to see how the solution that you're offering can address what they are trying to do. So you need to get that pitch right, and all this comes through proper working through the presentation much before you go in and present it to the customer. So you cannot just wing it. I mean, when I say customer, even if you're going to a set of high school student, you should know what they are looking for. So in that case, of course, typing what the chip or software or anything that you're presenting can do may be very relevant. But again, understand that you are there to present an idea that they should absorb and take it in. The end goal here is not just to make ourselves look great in the eyes of the audience, right? So that we should permanently internalize that. So that's about the content. And as I said, right off the bat, this is a very famous book that you may have heard about, like What They Don't Teach You at Harvard Business School, right? So this book sold in millions. If you really dig deeper into it, it's basically some rational, meaningful management ideas. So the title of the book would have been Some Useful Management Principles. If you have titled that book that way, nobody would buy it, right? But by titling it simply what they don't teach you at Harvard Business School, it sets up some tension, or you're giving you a sense that they are revealing some secrets that nobody knew about so far outside Harvard, and so it brings some energy and interest and curiosity in the audience and makes them buy the book. Same thing applies to presentations also. So the look and the layout. When I say that L for look, it's on the slide. It's on how do you title the slide, and how do they look, meaning visually nicer and cleaner. Now with all sorts of AI tools that are available, even if you are using PowerPoint, PowerPoint itself gives you clear design ideas. There are nice palettes. If you choose a set of color palette, the consistent colors, right? So that it's not like uh, dark red and green and blue and all kinds of primary color randomly thrown in as if some elementary school kid put together that presentation. It doesn't make the overall slide look visually pleasing. So using a color palette that has consistent set of colors and then using only those colors in your slide may give it a visually pleasing appearance to the slide, right? So the look of the slide, look of your presentation, and even if you are using a font, just one consistent font throughout the slide, that's really important. And how big the fonts are, so that think how back, like how many rows of audience may be sitting there and watching your presentation. So if there are 30, 40 rows of audience in a big conference, even though there is a big screen that's projecting your content, the last row audience should still be able to see the last line of text that you have in the smallest font, right? So don't make the font too small, make it really, really big. Do not write full sentences, make it just the highlighted bullet points that you want to make, because you are there to present the points to the audience, right? They are not going to be just reading material. So how do you put this layout and the look together is really, really important. And that's the reason I was saying initially, look at the TED Talk and you can come here, come to look at this later. And when you go further, this is just a sample from one of my early slides. So on some 5G, I was talking about the major stumbling blocks that are there. And this is how you will see most of the people putting bullet lists together, right? And often if you notice, it will be white background, black or blue bullet text. That's how it will be. This is really boring. And in this day and age, you should not be doing things like this. So how to change, how to make it more attractive is really, really easy. If you go into PowerPoint, there is this notion of smart art. You don't know, you can just look it up. There are tons of videos on how to use it, etc. So you can go into smart art, and even for simple list of bullets, you can choose different kinds of bullet list and just fill in the text this way. Okay, so it's the same content. Now we have a darker background, darker blue with the white text, and then these things are just coming up in a much more interesting way than the way it appeared before. To me, this is much more visually pleasing. I'm just giving one example, but there are a lot of variations in smart art itself. Or if you're using Canva or any of those, any of the many new AI offerings, you can make things look much more visually interesting. And again, the color combination, etc., should be really nice. The font should be really clear and visible to read. If you put some sort of a dark color font here, some dark blue and then light blue, it becomes really difficult to read from far, right? So make sure that that's very clear. And again, use one consistent font all through your slides. Don't use different serif and sans serif font and mix and matching. Makes the slides look very unprofessional or very immature, right? So don't do those things. And another thing I constantly encourage people is to use this very minimal, simple animation. Again, don't do too many things that are floating in, flying around, this and that. I just use one simple animation of things floating up one by one. The reason I use animation is because if you just show the whole slide right at the beginning, as you are talking about just this first bullet, no one wants to pay for it. People are going to start reading the second, third, fourth bullet, and then they'll be thinking about, oh, there are more, but how do we solve these issues? They'll be in that area, right? You don't want that. You want to control the narrator. As a result, just breaking the slides into 2, 3 parts and then showing that in order, one at a time. It gives you better control over the narrative. So you just show the first bullet, talk about it, then go to the second bullet, talk about it, then go to the third bullet. And when I say this, again, you should not have 17 bullets in one slide itself, right? It should be just 3, 4 at the most, not way too many. But do use animation and do not put way too much material. But even when there is like 4, 5, control the narrative. You should be the person running the presentation. You should not let the audience read ahead and think ahead of you, right? So now we talked about content and then the look. The third one is energy. Often people, they may be worried about public speaking. They are worried about not getting the word right. The answer to those is practice, right? Not putting the entire speech or the content, the whole paragraphs in the slides. That's a definite no-no. So do not do that. And if you just keep looking at the slide and read the whole paragraph, it makes the presentation really bad looking. So you should not be do that. So bring some energy, practice, get your wording right. Do not read the paragraphs. Then when you speak, be on the louder side than on the calmer side, right? That is because you want to bring the energy, you want to like energize the audience, you want to make them believe in what you are telling them. And if you are giving them something to do, some action item where some action is required, they need to be energized to go execute on that later. If you're just standing there mumbling, they are not going to be energized on that one at all. So be very clear, be crisp, but if you need to error on one side or the other, rather than being too calm, bring a little bit more energy and be on the louder side, right? That would be my suggestion. And when I say this, I always keep a bottle of water with me, as well as some lozenges, which are in case if your throat becomes scratchy and if you're not able to speak, you can't stop and run away. So you should always have some water and the halls or the throat lozenges kind of thing with you, so you can pop one and continue going without having to stop the presentation. These are little details. Keeping this ready would make a lot of difference in case if things are not going in the right way, right? And the third point, be alive. Quite often I see people just standing behind the podium and then just reading paragraph after paragraph. Not good, right? So you can walk, interact with the audience, ask them questions so that they are also alert. And I've seen even some speakers specifically saying, hey, I am here to present a good idea to you. So please do not look at your phone. Please do not look at your laptop while we are discussing. Please pay attention to me. And they even insist, put away your phone, put away your laptop before they start the presentation. It may sound a little rude, but you can use polite words to say that. Please, when you say that, for the initial 2, 3 minutes, people may give you that benefit of doubt and start looking at you. At that point, if you really catch them and then continue your presentation well, there is a good chance that they will stay with you throughout the presentation, right? And even on that same note, right off the bat, when you start the presentation, you need to have some sort of a good hook that immediately catches them and retains their attention, right? You can, for example, say something that looks extraordinary, some fact figure, something related to your industry, even if it's not specifically connected to your talk. So, for example, I give some factoid related to semiconductors. The level to which we polish our wafers. Wafers are just about 30, 33 inches in diameter. It's in circular shape. But imagine if that wafer is as big as the entire country of United States, if it's that big, right? They are polished to such an extent, the difference between the New York and Los Angeles, two ends of the country, will only be like about 5 human hair widths, right? Once we say something like that, or another factoid I give is the water that we use in treating VLSI chips is so pure that if you really drink it, you will die. It will kill people, right? So pure water kills people. Those kinds of some factoid that will make people jolt up and start listening to you. Then you got them. Then you need to continue with that level of energy and interest and thoughts and visually nice looking slides so that we can continue our presentation and convey the story really well, right? So I need to think through. These things don't happen if you just wing it, if you just come and just start talking about it. So need to put a lot of thought into it beforehand to bring the right level of energy and connect with the audience, right? Now, just for a couple of slides, I wanted to talk about how even very well experienced company executives, when they are giving large presentation, they don't wing it. Meaning, it's not like some secretary made the slide and then they just come and do the presentation without any practice, right? You won't believe the amount of practice extremely experienced, not only company executives, even if you take like a stand-up comedian or somebody like that, whoever does a really good show, the amount of effort that they put in is unimaginable. So in the 2019 timeframe, as part of Intel's launch of a product called Snow Ridge, I was really involved in going to multiple locations all over the world. And this is one of the huge conferences in Las Vegas that takes place in the beginning of January called CES, Consumer Electronics Show. And one of our EVP was presenting in the conference. So this is a couple of days before the actual presentation. And you can see the number of people. There were about 17 people that were just sitting in a row. And the EVP was actually presenting on the stage here, and these people were taking notes, giving him notes, and there were literally people like directors who will say, okay, you need to move to the left, you need to stop there and talk about this, and so on and so forth, right? And this 1 hour presentation was practiced over and over and over for the previous 2 days to get it all right, the timing right, the face right, and where he should stand, how long it will take to walk to the other end of the stage, and so forth. I completely understand this is a big presentation, and so it should be done this way. But that goes to show that even casual looking presentation that executives give, they really put a lot of thought around it, right? So this is to show how many people come in for one presentation preparation 2 days ahead of time. And this is to show this is the same stage that the people are all sitting somewhere here. I wanted to show how much they prepare. So instead of having just a laptop, they actually have, this is a huge stage, right? So they have 3 huge TV systems. So on each one on the left side, you actually have the slide, what is behind the executive. And then on the right side, they have a complete script that is given to them that they read, reread, practice, and then make it. I mean, more or less they memorize it, but it's all there. But what I wanted to point out are these details. Look at this. It says today I'm going to dive a little deeper and focus on creators. This looks like something that executives will just say extemporaneously without really practice, just casually speaking, right? But in reality, it is not. They really even script these things out. And then you can see here, walk stage right, meaning in the stage, this is the right side, right? For the audience, this is the left side. But for the stage, this is the right side because the stage people are facing this way. So walk stage right. And then it says, I have invited, there is a lady, this Ka Wei He. I'll show you a video next. Her name is written as Kawehi. And we wanted to make sure the EVP pronounces that name right. So they even wrote it phonetically, Ka Wei He, right? The musician you saw at the top of the show, blah, 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 something. And then he says, hey guys, thanks for joining me, right? So you can see to the level at which scripting goes on, practice goes on, and this goes on for 1 or 2 days before the presentation, and this is just for a 1 hour presentation, right? So this whole video is available on YouTube. If you go and look up CES 2019 Intel keynote, you will see this. So I'm going to just fast forward to show just few seconds here and there. So one is this is a gentleman named Greg Bryant, who was a EVP at that time. So we'll fast forward to 7 minutes to show where he's actually talking to that musicians.
To Core i9. Now this full family of processors is going to enable anyone from casual users all the way up to professionals to have the performance they need to do what matters most to them. So what I thought we'd do is have a little fun today to start things off, to demonstrate the power and performance in the creative segment. And I've invited Kaveh, who you saw as the one-woman band who started the show, and producer and composer Kevin Doucette to join me to help show what these processors are capable of. So hey guys, thank you so much. You're amazing.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us at CS. So now normally when we talk about music and content creation, you think there's a band, there's a guitar, there's some drums, but you don't have that.
No, I ain't got no band. It's just me. But with technology, I get to be the guitar player. I can be the drummer. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So here you notice that she was saying, I ain't got no band, right? So even that, I don't have a band, or should we say, oh, today I don't have a band, or I own no band. How should we say that? This was all practiced clearly, and then they settled on, I ain't got no band. Makes it like very casual how a musician may speak, etc. Right? So even to that extent, these are completely scripted. That's the point I wanted to convey here. After this, they just play a little bit of music. At the end of that music thing, he'll actually casually make a comment, something like, "Oh, I know the song that you picked. I'm an old dude, so it's not for me, right?" Something. Even that was actually rehearsed, and when he should say it, and so forth. So many of these sessions where it looks like they are all casually talking, there's a lot of preparation that goes in the days in ahead of the actual show to get it all correct. This is not unique to just executives presenting on large conferences alone. But years back, maybe 20 years back, I noticed this US stand-up comedian named Chris Rock. On cable TV, I saw a 2-hour stand-up comedy he did. It was extremely successful, very well received, extremely funny. But when I was watching that show, suddenly I noticed, oh, every now and then his jacket keeps changing. Then after that, when I noticed and looked at the show notes, then I realized it's actually 3 stand-up sessions that he has done, one in Atlanta, one in London, one in Johannesburg, South Africa, right? And they have intercut those 3 stand-up comedy routines together, 1 2-hour long show that I was watching. I didn't even realize it for a while because the flow was so smooth. Chris Rock, of course, he's a professional comedian, but he has done that so well, and the audio levels were all consistent. There's not like a large echo in one and no echo in another, nothing like that, right? So they were able to interpret and make them all come together so smoothly that I didn't even notice that these were 3 different performances intercut to make 1 2-hour show. The reason I am saying that is, again, it goes to show that even that level people practice, and what often sounds like a casual conversation or casual presentation is actually done repeatedly with a lot of rehearsal, with a lot of perfection brought in by enough practice. Right? Coming to articulation, so I would say always speak in full sentences. Some of these I'm saying I constantly try to improve myself because these are not easy to do. Then no filler words. Often we end up saying things like that. I even say things like that often. People have pointed that out. So I try to internalize that and try not to say that often. If you do anything like Toastmasters practice, they would give you an opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. And when you speak on a particular topic, somebody will sit down and write how many times you did not speak in full sentences. They'll count how many times you said or any particular word that you incorrectly repeatedly use. People use like. I went there like, and then I did like. This was like something to that effect, right? Somebody would sit down and put a counter and then tell you at the end of 5 minutes you said 49 times, right? When somebody says that, then you realize, oh my God, did I really say 49 times in a 5-minute speech? This may sound like an exaggeration, but if you really try to record your own presentation and then count it, you'll be surprised. So practice, right? Speak in full sentences. Do not use filler words. Ask a friend to count or tell you what kind of mistakes you are doing. And once you get these things going, maybe you are doing this for one particular presentation, but once this becomes your second nature, usually you become much more conscious of it, and slowly your presentations start to become better and better, even if you don't practice a lot, right? And control the narrative. So I mentioned this, use a slide bill, meaning don't put all the content in one swoop. Number one, don't have too much content in one slide, but even in that case, since you are going to have multiple points, don't put everything together and control the flow so that you have better control over what people are thinking, right? Then practice, practice, practice. I can't emphasize this enough. Most people think, I've been working on this for so long. I know what this material is. I can just talk about it. No problem, right? That's not right. Even in my case, some presentation, for example, on 5G that I've been presenting since 2017 or so, if I keep doing it, then the words, the flow, how I say something becomes better and better. So long time back, during even my grad school days, if I give the same presentation twice, I almost feel like I'm cheating, right? Each time there should be new material or something to that effect. That's not quite right. If you keep giving the same presentation over and over, it becomes better and better. And so you are doing a good service. You are delivering a better product to your audience, right? So you should keep that in mind and make it better each time you present. And of course, I do what I presented as a 5G lecture in 2017 is not the same as what I present now. Now I also added a lot more content, something new about 6G and so forth. So you should, of course, continue to improve the content of your presentation as well. Then record your sessions for review. I do this all the time. Even this one I'm recording, I'm going to review it to see what are all the ways in which I goofed up so that next time I give this presentation, I can be better. And then get constructive criticism. This is really important. People are usually not comfortable getting criticism, but it's important to do that. Usually they are hesitant because giving receiving criticism sounds like an adversarial activity. But you go with a good colleague, good friend, or a family member. For example, I give technical talks, but I am aiming it as common audience. Any general audience should be able to observe and understand that fully, right? So after I do that, sometimes I ask my wife, who's not in the technical field, she's more in the medical field, to review and then give me feedback. And she completely rips me apart and clearly tells me, hey, you said this is really easy to understand, but it's not. You are using too many light or whatever else that I'm messing up, right? So if it's not really reaching her correctly, then my perception of me delivering a talk that is understandable for any common audience is wrong, right? So I need to go and peek to see how I need to change so that I reach the audience quickly. So do get constructive criticism. That's really, really important. And you should give constructive criticism to others as well. Be nice, be polite, because you're trying to help them improve their presentation. So no need to belittle them, putting them down. We don't need to do that, but discuss to see what can be improved. Then there is this idea called Pecha Kucha presentation. Pecha Kucha in Japanese means chit chat. So it's a presentation format where the presenter puts together 20 slides about some topic, right? So I ask my team members often to give a Pecha Kucha presentation about themselves so that they can introduce themselves to the team. Each one of the slide, when you go into the PowerPoint slideshow mode, it automatically advances without you having to click anything every 20 seconds. So it's 20 slides, 20 seconds a slide. So 20 by 20, 400 seconds. So it's just about 6 to 7 minutes long, right? Then you need to speak to it. You may think it's not a big deal, just a 6-minute presentation, right? But you will often notice that if people did not practice correctly, they'll keep talking and the slide has already advanced to the next slide or the third slide. They're still describing something a little too long, right? Or sometimes they'll just say one sentence and then they need to wait 10 seconds for the slides to advance to the next one that they want to talk about. So that awkwardness, of course, in a small team environment, it makes it fun, but it really teaches you the importance of timing. How long do you need to talk and how to make sure your presentation fits into the time slot that you are given. Because very often you'll be given a 20-minute time slot, you'll have 20 slides and you start talking. Even if you take a couple of minutes, you're talking about a 40-minute presentation that you are trying to compress and not present well, right? So that try that Pecha Kucha. In fact, in my own channel, I have one Pecha Kucha presentation that I gave. You can take a look and see if you find that interesting, right? Use time yourself, then use time markers, meaning maybe you can have some sort of a small note, anything interesting, or a particular change of color, anything that gives you a visual cue in your slides to indicate that you've already reached halfway point in the time that's given to you, or the 3/4 point in the time that is given to you, things like that, right? And you can also use the notes mode on your laptop. I do that all the time, so that you know what is coming up next. And then if there is some particular detail that you want to talk about in a slide which is not in the slide content, you can put those in the notes section of your slide, so that you can use it as a memory aid, so that you cover all your points and later on think, oh my God, I totally forgot to mention that in this slide, right? Here again, we are going back to that same presentation. So Snow Ridge was the device that we were launching in that particular conference. What I wanted to show was, this is Naveen Shenoy, and the day before when we were practicing, you will see him pulling out a blade, server blade. In there, he wanted to make sure he's not incorrectly giving some advertisement for some smart company, fan company, anything like that. So during the practice, you noticed, and then some brand name was showing up. And when he pulls up, there is a close up here. So he wanted to make sure a black tape was put there so that it becomes like a generic card, right? Again, you may not be doing exactly this in your presentation, but I'm pointing it out to tell you that it's this level of attention is paid in by even executives while they are presenting, right? So let's take a quick look.
Breaking it down, and repurposing it, and we're developing it and fitting it into a very small form factor such as this, ruggedizing it so that it can sit eventually onto those cell phone towers that we all drive by, thereby moving servers essentially closer and closer to the user. And we wanted to take some risk here today and show you a very early development, silicon development of Snow Ridge in action using our latest 10 nanometer process technology. I have here a Snow Ridge machine that's using our Snow Ridge silicon. And here I have a system that's generating traffic. What I'm going to do now is use this system to generate traffic, and that will be then processed by Snow Ridge. So I'm going to start that process now. Click this, start that process now. And what you see on the animation on the screen is a simulation of the traffic being generated by this machine. It's now being it's flowing through Snow Ridge on this machine. And what you can see it doing is there's 5 different applications that are running here.
So we don't need to see the whole thing. The point here is, again, anything that you want to present, we want to make sure it's like visually very interesting. The story that you are trying to convey gets conveyed very clearly, right? So when we wanted to do this Snow Ridge presentation, we really worked on it, and then we developed this particular application that generates a lot of traffic. It goes through Snow Ridge. It can really look at every packet and understand which one has higher priority because something is being transmitted for a surgery that is in progress versus somebody watching a movie, maybe somebody making a phone call. So it can do this quality of service prioritization and send that over, right? So we made this actual flow work. But if you just show this in some small command line window saying some numbers that is indicating traffic flow, it's not that interesting, right? So when I worked with his team, they came up with this animation, which then shows this remote surgery and productivity and virtual reality and manufacturing, sports, all that going on. So then Naveen could talk about how the prioritization allows you to ensure that the right traffic gets the right kind of priority on the net. Right? So this immediately gives them some visual. There is no remote surgery actually going on, but this visualization helps people understand the importance of what's going on. So how do you present a story? How do you reach the audience is really important, and you need to do that in a very visually interesting way, right? And in any of these presentations, if you notice the fonts they use, how they look, then the colors, the color palette that is there, this is all dark color palette. So this is consistent even here, right? So suddenly we are not putting like white color here or something like that. So these are things that we should pay attention to when you put together the material, when you present, so that there is a sense of overall consistency from one end to the other. Again, this may not be applicable to every little engineering presentation that you give, but one more thing to notice here is when he is doing this, he was actually doing it live. We had a Snow Ridge device. When you click on it, it actually sends the traffic. The dial that you see, it's actually pushing 100 gig traffic and so forth. But these are brand new products. So in the last minute, if it fails, what happens? You don't want the whole presentation to become a disaster. So these crew, the day before, they'll actually run the whole presentation and then record it in video, keep it in standby. So when he actually showed it, this was all real. He was not faking anything. But let's say in the last minute something doesn't work, they always have the recording. So with a small visual cue with a hand signal, they can tell him while the presentation is in progress, okay, it's not working. So he can just say, here is a recording of what we made just this morning or yesterday to show you what it is. So legally, morally, ethically, it's all correct. But he's just claiming that he's only showing a recording. But if it's all working okay, he can just play it live, right? Click on the link and everything really works. That way, they are prepared, and the audience doesn't know what is coming, right? So if you show them a recording and say it's a recording, it looks visually the same thing. The idea is really well conveyed. But if you can show it live, fantastic. But if you switch it over from one to the other, audience doesn't know. So they get more or less the same experience from their perspective. But for that to work, you need to be prepared. You need to record it. You need to have it at your button plus right at that moment when it is needed, right? So that's where all the presentation and being prepared ahead of time comes into play. So now to wrap it all up, in the end, your presentation should always have a clear recap. So what is it that you presented? So you should summarize it very clearly for them and then provide very clear takeaways, right? Often you may give a long presentation and in the end, if people think, oh, that is all very high-end presentation, I don't really understand what it was presented. Sometimes, at least in the academic circle or when we were in grad students, people even used to take pride in presenting something that the audience didn't understand. Now I just hate it. If you're doing that, you are wasting the audience's time. You are not showing off that you are a big hero, right? That's not the point of a presentation at all. So you need to make sure people understand what you are saying. And so provide clear takeaways. What is it that you presented? And this is what they should have understood. And then sometime you may have some action that you want your audience to take. You want them to go do X, Y, Z, right? So state that very clearly, action items and what is required of them at this point, having listened to this presentation. And in the end, do try to leave time for Q&A if that is needed, and also end it with a nice bang, right? So maybe some sort of interesting video, some animation, or some big factoid that you can throw at them so that it will, again, jolt them into alertness and say, oh my God, oh, is this really true? Oh, this is fantastic, something to that effect, right? So that is the idea of clear presentation. Again, recap, C for content, make sure your content is good. L for look. The look also includes you. How do you dress up? How do you stand in front of the audience? I'm not saying you're always should be in like suit and tie equivalent all the time, but in general, dressing up a little bit, looking well groomed, maybe putting on a blazer that makes you stand apart from the rest of the audience so that people will take you more seriously. Men, women, whoever is the presenter, uh, make yourself look better, right? So that's the look, not only your slide, but how you look personally as well. E for energy, bring in a lot of energy. A for articulation, practice, don't use filler words. Clearly present your ideas and then present a good recap. Then end with a bang. So I think it's a long enough presentation. Hopefully this gives you very good ideas on how to make your presentations look much better in the future. Thanks for your time.